All right, I'm going to show you how to create a Pareto chart in Graph Builder so that you can label the cumulative percents. So here's the structure of our data. We need one column that indicates the type variable, and then another column that has the number associated with each type. So the first thing we're going to do is create the cumulative percent column. So to create a new column, I'm just going to double click into this empty area next to quantity, highlight that column, right click, and go to formula. And now I'm going to look up the column sum formula. So I type in col sum and I get this col cumulative sum, which I double click to bring into the view. And then what I want to do is apply that to quantity. And we'll click OK. And now the next thing we need to do is divide this by the sum of the column. So we're going to go back in and edit the formula. So we're going to do a divide, and you can use this keypad at the top, divide by the column sum. So I'm going to type in col sum, double click, and then also put quantity in that box. And now I'm going to put my cursor so that it makes a box around the entire square and do a multiply 100. And that gets us the cumulative sum. So now what we'll do is we'll label this column and we'll fix the decimals. So I'm right clicking and going to column info. And I'll update this to say cumulative percent. And then we'll fix the format. So here's the format, and we're going to say we want to fix decimal. And maybe we just leave it at 0, but you could obviously change this number. Click OK. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Graph Builder and build our graph. So I'm going to put my failure in the X and then my quantity in this Y drop zone. And then I'm going to tell Jump that I want a bar. So I'm going to change this icon to the bar icon. The next thing I'm going to do is sort these in descending order. So I will right click on this axis, go to order by, and say sort descending. Now let's bring the cumulative percent into the graph. So I'll take the cumulative percent and drag it to the inside drop zone on the y-axis. Now Jump defaults the cumulative percent to a bar, and we need to tell it that we want a line graph instead. So we're going to do two things. We're going to move the cumulative percent to the other axis, and then we'll change it to a line. So I'm going to right click on this axis and say move right, and then I'll tell Jump to move the cumulative percent to the right. Now I'll right click in the graph area again and go to bar right, because that's what the cumulative percent is, and I'll change it to a line. And now I can add points to the line so that we can indicate the cumulative percent numbers. So again, that's a right click. I go to add, and this time notice the controls you have. You have a set of graphs you can bring in that are for the left, which don't have anything in parentheses, and then to the right. So we're going to add points to the right because we want points to add points to the cumulative line graph. Okay, so we're almost done. The last thing we need to do is label the graph. And the way that we label data in Jump, at least the columns, is we need to add the column property to to the column. So let's go back to the data table, and I'm going to right-click on cumulative to percent and say label, and that tells JMP that this is the thing we want to label by. And then I need to select all of my rows, right-click, and say I want you to label each one of those points. So you actually need to label the column because JMP needs to know what the value is to label, and then you need to label the rows so that JMP knows to add the label to each point. Now if we go back to the graph, you'll see that the points are labeled. So I click done, and here's my graph.